the question, which is that the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House be amended by inserting the following words, subject to recommittal of Clause 8. I now put the question, which is that the motion agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House be amended by inserting the following words, subject to recommittal of Clause 8. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Honorable members, I now put the question on the motion as amended. Order. Order. Which is that this House do agree with the report of the Committee of the Whole House on its consideration of the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 13 of 2023, subject to recommittal of Clause 8. As members of that opinion say aye. Aye. Will those of the contrary opinion say nay? Honourable members, following the direction I gave you, it means that when you go to the Committee of the Whole, then the withdrawal of Honourable Chepkonga will then be effected at that stage. Honourable members. Honourable members, before you go to the next order, I have some communication to make. And this is in relation to the dress code, admittance of visitors to Parliament, and security measures. Honourable members, you may recall that during the afternoon sitting of the House of Tuesday, September 2023, the Minority Whip and Member for Suna East, the Honourable Junet Mohammed MP, rose on a point of order and sought the guidance of the Chair on whether the member for Kimilili, the Honourable Didmas Baraza MP, was appropriately dressed. For greater clarity, at the time, the Honourable Didmas Baraza donned a collarless coat popularly known as Kaunda suit. You may also recall that in my preliminary response, I decried the emerging tendency by certain members of the House to breach the rules of the dress code. I indicated that the breaches were occurring in plenary, in committees, and in controlled members' facilities within Parliament, particularly the lounges and restaurants. There are several members, honourable members, both ladies and gentlemen, who have on various occasions approached the Chair to point out how indecently or inappropriately some of their colleagues are dressed. As your Speaker, I have resisted the temptation to name and shame any member because I feel and know the devastating effect it can have on honourable members, especially first-term members. Consequently, honourable members, I undertook to guide the House on this matter. In this regard, honourable members, in my communication, I'll guide on the rules on dress code, admittance of visitors to Parliament, and security measures within the precincts of Parliament, since they are all related. Let me commence with the matter of dress code. As you may be aware, honourable members, this is not the first time the Speaker has been invited to determine the appropriateness or otherwise of members' dress code. I have gone through the Speaker's rulings from 1963 to 2022 and established several instances where presiding officers were called upon to rule on the dress code. The decisions made by my predecessors are clear on what would pass as appropriate dress code for members while attending parliamentary business. Now that there is no lacuna, I will refrain from delving into the substance of the point of order raised by the Minority Party Whip and other issues attendant thereto. Instead, I'll focus on what the rules and the President of the House expect of honourable members on matters of dress code. Honourable members, prescription of a parliamentary dress code is important as it not only establishes the sartorial standards of the House, but also preserves its honor and dignity as an august House. It is for this reason that parliamentary dress code has been jealously guarded and defended over the years, not only in our house, but in houses all over. To this end, parliaments the world over have anchored descriptive provisions on the dress code of members of parliament, staff, and other persons admitted to the precincts of parliament. In the case of this House, appropriate dress code is described in Rule number 9 of the Speaker's Rules, and the rule provides as follows, and I quote, "Members of Parliament, members of the press, and guests should not enter the chamber, lounge, dining room, or committee rooms without being properly dressed. A proper dress for men means a coat, a collar, a tie, long-sleeved shirt, long trousers, socks, shoes, or service uniform. For the ladies, business, formal, or smart casual wear applies. Skirts and dresses should be below knee length and decent. Sleeveless blouses are prohibited." Honorable members, whereas the rule is clear, determination of the Speaker has been sought on various occasions owing to the variants that the described dressing has assumed over time. Of interest to the matter at hand is the appropriateness of religious regalia, kaunda suits, hats, capes for men, and traditional cultural wear in the context of Rule 9. Honorable members, with regard to kaunda suits, I need not belabor the fact that several members of the 13th Parliament and past houses have donned kaunda suits. For the record, donning of kaunda suits has somehow gained acceptance in the House since the 8th Parliament, when the then member for Runyenjes, Honorable Njeru Kadhangu, always wore the attire. In subsequent parliaments, including the 12th Parliament, certain members have seemingly been following the Honorable Kadhangu's footsteps. Senior Counsel, the Honorable Dr. Otienda Amolo MP, the member for Rieta, stands out as having a particular taste for collarless coats. The same was the case of the former member for Kisumu Town West, the Honorable Olago Alwach, among others. Honorable members, my predecessors have had issue with kaunda suit, have had no issue with kaunda suit. The records of the House include a ruling made on Wednesday, 13th March 2019, on appropriate dress code for members in Parliament, in which my immediate predecessor, Speaker Justin Muturi, who also loves similar attire, reaffirmed that indeed, as I ruled before in 2014, kaunda suits and even, for lack of a better term, the Mao Zedong coats, worn without a tie, are admissible as part of proper dressing in the House. Consequently, despite clear provisions by Rule 9 of the Speaker's Rules, kaunda suit has somehow been tolerated in the House. However, honorable members, arising from emerging fashion trends that now threaten the establishment of parliamentary dress code, it has become necessary for me to depart from what has been obtaining regarding the admittance of the kaunda suit as appropriate dress. I do this to guard against negating the set standards, especially given the current preference by some members to dress easy while attending parliamentary business in plenary and committees. This practice outrightly does not accord with the seriousness of the proceedings of the House and its committees. Going forward, therefore, honorable members, any attire outside what is prescribed in Rule 9 of the Speaker's Rules is prohibited. This includes kaunda suits, whether long or short-sleeved. With respect to other gracious honorable lady members, I have been petitioned regarding appropriate attire for the distinguished honorable members. These concerns have largely been raised by fellow gracious lady members who have asked me to protect the dignity of the House and its committees. In this regard, honorable members, it's instructive that lady members must also be dressed in official attire at all times while in the presence of Parliament and while attending committee meetings, in adherence to Rule 9 of the Speaker's Rules. Honorable lady members must also avoid tightly fitting clothes and revealing attire. The above directive is in no way meant to to prefect honorable members, but to protect and uphold the dignity of the House and your stature as honorable members of Parliament. Honorable members, allow me to now address the second issue on the place of traditional or cultural attire in the chamber. You recall on the Tuesday, 15th August 2023, I exceptionally permitted the Honorable Rebecca Tonkei, MP, and the Honorable Agnes Pareyo, MP, to momentarily be in the chamber while donning in Maasai cultural dress. It is instructive for the House to take note that the admittance to the House of the two gracious lady members ought not to be constructed or construed as having been rewritten or suspended the application of Rule 9 of the Speaker's rules. For the record, I indulge the two members with the utmost regard to the circumstances of that particular moment. As you may recall, honorable members, the two gracious lady members sought the Speaker's permission to don the Maasai cultural attire to publicize the Ma Cultural Festival 2023, which was scheduled to be observed at the end of that week. I therefore invoked my exceptional intelligence on the premise of Article 44 of the Constitution relating to promotion of and manifestation of cultures. Consequently, the provisions of Rule 9 as a threshold for dress code to protect the sartorial standards of the House still applies. And Tonkei and Pareyo, you will not be allowed again. Looking at the practice, it is noteworthy that in 2009, Speaker Kenneth Marende grappled with the question as to whether to permit traditional wear in the chamber or not. Further, the Speaker also considered whether indeed there was a non-dress that would pass as a standard national traditional wear that could be permitted in the chamber. Honorable members, on 7th May 2009, Speaker Marende observed as follows: there has been glamour in the recent times for us to relax our rules on dress code and also allow traditional wear in the House, its committees, the lounges and dining areas. Indeed, you will recall that this matter was debated at length during the all-members retreat on review of the standing orders in August 2008. It was unanimously resolved that there has not been a commonly accepted traditional dress for all. The then Speaker observed that it was difficult to find an agreed position, codified or otherwise, as to what is our national dress. In the circumstances, the Speaker concluded that members ought to uphold the dignity of the House and observe the Speaker's rules on dress code, not only in this chamber, but also in committees, the lounges, and the dining areas. Honorable members, recently in the 12th Parliament, my immediate predecessor guided the House comprehensively on the matter of dress code. In a ruling made on Wednesday, 13th March 2019, the Speaker addressed the question on whether, in fact, it was time to depart from the traditionally prescribed dress code that the House has been accustomed to for decades and which has been used for preserving the dignity and sartorial standards of this House. In settling this question, the Speaker left the decision on whether to depart from the traditions of the House with regard to dress code to the determination of the House. He stated, and I quote, "As your servant, in fact, when time comes for the House to review its sartorial standards and to break with the tradition, we shall proceed as the House shall determine." Honorable members, it is clear from the foregoing that two cardinal triggers would have guided the Speaker on the issue of the dress code. First would be existence of a national dress. On this, the Speaker observed that Kenya does not have a standard national dress which manifests the multiplicity of its cultures. Consequently, as was then, it is still untenable to permit all manner of cultural wear in the chamber and in committee sittings without compromising the sartorial standards of the House. The second trigger would be a definitive decision by the House to vary its rules or dress code. Considering the House had not varied its rules, my predecessor was of the considered opinion that the House was yet to find it appropriate to review its sartorial standards and break from its long-held tradition that is codified in the Speaker's rules. In view of the foregoing, I am inclined to depart not to depart from the practice which disallows cultural wear in the House so as to uphold the sartorial standards espoused in the Speaker's rules. With regard to the committee meetings and activities, you will recall that in my communication dated 11th May 2023, I guided the House on the appropriate dress code in committees. To these honorable members, the rules on dress code applies in committees in the same manner it applies in the chamber. Honorable members, it's noteworthy that the foregoing directions are also to parliamentary staff and visitors as a prerequisite for admission to the precincts of Parliament. All staff, without exception, are required to dress appropriately and display their badges at all times. Indeed, I hasten to remind the parliamentary staff that Section 9 of the Public Officer Ethics Act 2003 requires all public officers to maintain an appropriate standard of dress and personal hygiene. In addition, all accredited media representatives who report parliamentary proceedings and visitors shall strictly be admitted only if properly dressed and shall be required to display the accreditation or visitor badges whilst within the precincts of Parliament. As the chairman of the Parliamentary Service Commission, I hereby instruct the clerks of the Houses of Parliament and the Director General Parliamentary Joint Services to ensure that staff, parliamentary reporters and visitors strictly comply with the foregoing requirements on dress codes and display of badges. Further, in dealing with cases of non-compliance, the clerks of the Houses of Parliament and the Director General Parliamentary Joint Services are hereby directed to take immediate disciplinary action under the Parliamentary Service Commission Code of Conduct and regulations governing admittance of visitors to the precincts of Parliament. Honorable members, with regard to the admittance of visitors to the precincts of Parliament, Rule 4 of the Speaker's rules place responsibility for the conduct of visitors on the member. For clarity, the rule states as follows. Members are responsible for the selection and conduct of all visitors whom they introduce to the presence of the Assembly and are required to assist in enforcing these orders. Honorable members have cited the rule which governs access by visitors to the presence of Parliament because it has constantly been breached. The violations have also led to the access by visitors to places exclusively reserved for sitting members both alone and in the company of members. Owing to our numbers against the limited capacity of facilities, no member will be admitted in the members' restaurants if accompanied by more than one guest at a time, except with the prior notice to the clerk of the National Assembly. The guests must be properly dressed and must display their visitor badges at all times. Further, no member shall take a guest to an area of the restaurant reserved for members only unless permitted by the Honorable Speaker. Honorable members, to safeguard your comfort and privacy, I have instructed the Chief Sergeant at Arms to ensure that no visitor accesses areas designated as restricted in the Speaker's rules. Further, I have directed the clerk, who is also the officer administering the catering fund, to alienate clearly designated and marked areas in the restaurant for members. This is a provisional measure, awaiting the comprehensive consideration and recommendations of appropriate membership rules by Parliamentary Catering Fund Management Committee. Honorable members, many times the Parliamentary Catering Fund Management Committee has come to the Speaker protesting that there are members who sometimes come with as many as 10, 15, 20 guests. And when they are told that the facilities are available for a limited number of people, some have even attempted to assault those officers who try to advise them otherwise. Honorable members, there shall be no exception with regard to exclusion of non-members from areas designated for exclusive use of yourselves. The Chief Sergeant at Arms, under the guidance of the clerk, is directed pursuant to Rule 23 of the Speaker's rules to expel any visitors from the stated places or any part of the presence of Parliament if he considers such exclusion necessary for the convenience of member or for preservation of order. Honorable members, permit me to also address a concern raised by members about the conduct of security checks at the gates and entry to the chamber. Some members have objected to being physically frisked by our security personnel and sergeant-at-arms and requested that we apply a more decent approach. As you may have noticed, honorable members, installation of the integrated security management system is nearing completion. Upon completion, the system will offer conductless security screening. In the interim, I have directed the Director General Parliamentary Joint Services to immediately procure security scanning gadgets for use at all entry points. Additionally, honorable members, all entries and exits to Parliament are and shall continue to be manned by parliamentary security officers with the support of the officers from the National Police Service. The officers should be vigilant at all times and must enforce security measures without exception. With respect to frisking members at the entrance to the chamber, as you may have noticed, the clerk has already availed handheld screening gadgets for purposes of conductless screening. This follows a resolution of the House Business Committee. Honorable members, permit me also to speak to the manner of handling of firearms within the precincts of Parliament. I wish to remind you of Rule 8 of the Speaker's Rules, which states as follows: members and visitors who are duly authorized to hold firearms must deposit them with the sergeant-at-arms at the time of entry and collect them at the time of leaving. Honorable members, I may also wish to tell you that from where I sit, I have seen and I've been informed by some members, and I believe them, that some members who are licensed to bear firearms have been coming to this chamber with those firearms. It is a violation, and whoever does that will be called upon through the majority or minority leader to be named and to get appropriate discipline. Currently, honorable members, a majority of members dutifully comply with this rule. However, it has been reported that a number of members have on occasion failed to comply with the rules. Honorable members, I want to repeat, those of you who are licensed to bear arms, when you enter the precincts of Parliament, your first point of call is the office of the Sergeant-at-Arms, who will take your firearm legitimately and hold it for you until the time when you leave. Then you can retrieve it and go and use it wherever you want. Honorable members, it is quite distasteful for any member to attempt to carry a firearm into the chamber, a committee sitting, the lounges, or dining areas at any time. Firearms must never be brought into these cited areas for the security of all members whilst within the precincts of Parliament. The Chief Sergeant-at-Arms is hereby instructed to strictly enforce this directive at all times. In any case, honorable members, the government has given each one of you security. Who bear arms? Why would you carry a secondary arm when you have a security man or woman with you with a firearm? In summary, honorable members, I direct as follows: that all members must observe Rule 9 of the Speaker's Rules on Dress Code, not only in the chamber, but also in committees, in the lounges, and in the dining areas. That countersuit is not permitted in the chamber, committees, in the lounges, and dining areas. That hats and caps for men are not permitted in the chamber and in the committees. That traditional and cultural attire is not permitted in the chamber, committees, the lounges, and dining areas until such a time as there is an agreed standard of national dress that manifests the national cultures, that the House reviews its sectorial standards to define the bounds applicable to traditional or cultural attire in the dress code, or that the Honourable Speaker may have otherwise directed. That staff, accredited media representatives, and visitors to Parliament must be appropriately dressed and must display their identification badges at all times while within the presence of Parliament. That the clerk, the National Assembly, delineates and clearly marks areas in the restaurant for exclusive use of members. For the convenience of members, no other person other than a sitting member of Parliament shall be permitted into an area designated for exclusive use of sitting members, except with the leave of the Speaker. That the clerks to the Houses of Parliament and the Director General Parliamentary Services implement the directive in this communication without exception in their respective services. That the Catering Fund Management Committee hastens to process the process of putting in place membership rules to govern the use of members' restaurants, and that the clerk of the National Assembly circulates the Speaker's rules to all members. Honourable members, I give these directions conscious of the fact that they might bring some discomfort to some of you. However, I said sometime earlier this year that the discomfort is necessary for the convenience and security of members and for good order. The House is accordingly guided, and let's all abide by this. Thank you. Let me start with Jeanette, who fired this before I come to you.
Mr. Speaker.